Welcome to Girls Night In Online. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Before we get started, just a little bit about our moderator, Julia Fisher-Farbman. Julia has interviewed notables such as Michelle Obama and His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. She's produced shows for ABC, the United Nations, and created the award-winning series Modern Hero. Her latest endeavor is a feature film she wrote and is producing, Audrey's Children, based on the untold true story of oncologist and co-founder of the Ronald McDonald House Charities, Dr. Audrey Evans. So to get this evening started, I now turn the microphone over to Julia. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us, Girls Night In Online. I don't want to waste any time because I know how excited you all are to get to talk to Tricia. So I know most of you watching probably know who Tricia Helfer is. She really does it all. She is truly a jack of all trades. She's modeled for the top brands in the world like Versace and Armani. She's graced the pages of Marie Claire, Elle, Vogue, among others. She's played leading roles in TV shows like Battlestar Galactica, which I'm sure most of you know, and Van Helsing. She's been in movies like Bombshell, and she's done video games like Halo 3 and Mortal Kombat and more. And in her free time, she is a very passionate animal rights advocate with the Humane Society and PETA. Tricia, is there anything you cannot do?
There's plenty I cannot do, like sing.
I don't believe
say, Michelle Obama, Dalai Lama, I am honored to be interviewed by you, Julia.
Oh my goodness. Well, I tell you what, the respect is mutual because you truly are incredible. And I want to talk to you a little bit about your background, because when I came across the fact that you grew up on a grain farm, I was like, this is fantastic. And for a little fun fact for all the fans, she has 3 sisters. All 3 have T names, I believe Tammy, Trina, and Tara.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit what your life was like growing up.
Well, I'll start with the names. Tammy came from a song that Mom loved. I don't know who sang it, but it was a beautiful song, and Tammy was the girl in it that was talked about. Trina came next, and Mom saw the name in a newspaper and loved the name. And then I came along and I was a mistake. So they figured that they needed to name me a T name too, or I'd feel left out. And then 7 years later, another little surprise shows up. So they decided they had to keep the trend going. So that's when Tara came around. But yeah, I grew up on a grain farm in rural Alberta, Canada. And there were certainly times growing up that, you wish you were closer to town, or you didn't get to go do as many things as the rest of the kids. But looking back, I would never change it for the world. It was an incredible upbringing.
Is it true that you grew up without a TV?
Yeah, I say my parents got a TV and a VCR and a Betamax when my 2 older sisters started dating. Because in a rural community, the thing to do was go to somebody's house and watch a movie or something. And so my parents decided, I think we want movie night at our house, the ability to do it at least. But they never hooked it up to, I guess, an antenna or to satellite, and they still don't. So the only way for my parents to see anything that I've ever done, in terms of on television or movies, I have to send them a DVD.
I love that.
They just got Wi-Fi, okay? Like last week.
Are they here tonight? Should we give them a shout out? Are they here?
I don't think so. I don't know if they are or not.
Well, so growing up without a TV, you have had such an incredible career on the television, on the big screen. How did you always know that you wanted to sort of, I guess, be a star and dream as big as you've become?
No, I never grew up thinking that way. I saw very few movies because there was a 1-room theater 45 minutes, an hour away. And so very rarely saw movies, and it just wasn't kind of in my, periphery or anything. I never thought, or with modeling, I never thought I looked like somebody on the cover of a magazine. I didn't really look at fashion magazines or anything like that. I mean, I worked on the farm. I was a farmhand. So it was work. My summer job was up at 6 or 7 and work all day. And and then weekends and everything. And so it was schoolwork, sports, and farm work.
Wow.
That, you know, that was, I was planning on going to university into psychology, but that was the goal. But I certainly never had the idea of going into modeling or acting, no.
So that makes the story of how you were discovered that much better, in my opinion. So for those who haven't heard this before, you were at that one movie theater an hour away from your farm,
Yeah.
and you literally got discovered by a model scout. So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was actually a girl that was doing some modeling for the modeling scout, Kelly Strait. And I can't remember her name, but she went to school with my older sister. And she was in university at that time. And so she was back in town visiting her parents. And she saw me in the lineup. I was there with my boyfriend. I think we were watching Sleeping with the Enemy. And she goes, oh, I'm doing this local, some modeling for this guy. Can I give him your number? And I said, no. But, you know, at that time, well, there wasn't cell phones or anything like that. But of course, your number is in the yellow pages, you know, and that type of thing. And so she gave it to him anyway, and he called up. And talked to my folks, yeah.
So then, because you went to New York pretty instantly after that, so what changed that made you say, you know what, I'm just going to go for it?
Well, I told my volleyball mates about it, and teammates, and they were all like, you got to at least, you know, meet him. And it just was the next time we were in the city, we made an appointment to go see him. And he took a couple of, you know, snapshots and had them, again at that time, had them developed and sent them to Eileen Ford in New York at Ford Models. And within a week afterwards, I was in New York.
What was that like when you got there? Was that like, whoa, because New York is a busy, busy city for anyone, let alone someone coming from a farm in rural Canada?
You know, I got so lucky because I had just turned 17. So this happened towards the end of grade 12, right around my birthday. And so grade 11. And Kelly organized to send me to New York in July when that school year was out. And he, you know, so I wasn't 14. Some of the girls are so young. And I had been raised again, on a farm. So there was a complete shock, but I had to do budgets, and I had to, you know, every Sunday night we would sit down and we'd go over our budgets. And I had, you know, so I'd been handling my own money for quite a few years. I had to buy my own school supplies, you know, with the money that I made and that type of thing. So I was definitely, what's the word? I can't think of it. Anyway, but I got really lucky with Kelly Strait because he set me up with really protection in mind. You know, he didn't just send me off to New York. He sent me off with Eileen Ford, who had somebody pick me up at the airport, I stayed at Eileen Ford's apartment in New York, Eileen and Gerald Ford. Wow. And I stayed with them. I was only there like 5 days, and they sent me to go get test shots, you know, with photographers. And they had somebody with me the entire time, take me to and from the appointments, and then I would go stay with them. Wow. And then after that week, Kelly had organized me with a modeling agency in Montreal, Giovanni Models. And I stayed with Giovanni. And then I moved over, and I was there for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks in the summer, and I worked. But so it wasn't like I was just set free, you know, this little farm girl set free in the wild city.
That does sound like a good movie, though, doesn't it? That sounds like a good movie.
It does. But his, you know, Kelly's focus is really, he loves the business, but he knows there's, you know, like any business, there's challenges, and especially if the girls are young and inexperienced. And so I really was set up to be protected and to grow and learn and be comfortable.
That's incredible. And obviously it worked because, I mean, you just Google, if you guys don't know what she's modeled for, all you have to do is type in her name because you have really done it all, like all of the top brands in the world, winning top contests. So having such success in modeling, what made you then want to transition to acting? Because they're really very different muscles.
They are, you know, there's an element that of modeling that certainly helps you as an actor. I mean, I was very shy. I was very shy, and it took me a while to be comfortable in front of the camera. But with modeling, you've got a smaller team, right? There's, you know, the photographer and a couple of other people generally, as compared to a, you know, TV shoot or movie shoot that there's 300 crew, you know, not necessarily all on set. But I totally lost my train of thought. I knew modeling for me was always a business. Because, you know, going back to what we said earlier, it wasn't a dream of mine, right? And so it was always a business for me. And while I absolutely appreciate having the opportunity, I knew that it wasn't a long-term career. It is more so now. There's girls that I worked with. One of my best girlfriends from back then, Shiraz Tal, top Israeli model. She's still, you know, there are still girls modeling, and maybe that has to do a bit with the baby boomer generation as well. Like they're wanting to see more representation of, you know, not just very, very young girls. So there is more opportunity, but at that point, it really seemed like there was more of a finality to your career. And I didn't want to get to a point where I couldn't find work anymore, and then felt, you know, threatened and yeah. And so I started, and I also was wanting to, it wasn't thrilling me, I wasn't enjoying it as much as I had. I'd done fashion shows for years, and then and then I tapered that off, and I wasn't traveling quite as much. And I really wanted to use my mind more. And so that's when I started looking at other ideas of, okay, do I go to university now? Because I skipped that phase. I thought maybe about getting into broadcast, and I did a few things, you know, a little bit of behind the scenes things for reporting for Fashion File and a couple of things. And then I discovered I kind of like being in front of the camera, you know? So I just started with an acting class and took classes in New York in the evening with Penny Templeton Studios until I was like, I'm moving to LA. I'm quitting modeling and I'm moving to LA. It was about 1.5 years of studying, I think.
And obviously that move paid off also. I just have to give so much credit to you for the foresight of just kind of always looking towards that next step, whether it's intentional or not. It has led to such an incredible career that you've had. And so it was pretty much what, 1 year after you moved to LA, you got Battlestar, which is like unheard of.
Well, you know, a lot of the girls at my kind of my age and that I knew, like Manon Van Gerken, she was, you know, everybody kind of found their passion, right? It was, she started designing jewelry, and she's still, you know, she has a store in New York now, and I think she still does some modeling. Or a lot of women got married and they're like, I've traveled. And, you know, one of my best girlfriends, Michelle Behenna, she got married and she has 3 kids now, and she's a mom, and, you know, that's what she wanted to do. So it's, everybody kind of found their path, you know, and quite a few of them went back to modeling now that there's more kind of, like we said, inclusivity for age. But yeah, I really wanted to, I was never drawn to the children route personally for myself. And so I really wanted to give acting a shot. I loved it in class. It terrified me. But I loved the idea of getting into like a character's mind. And I think it's maybe my interest in psychology when I was younger, you know, that kind of made the click for me. And so when I moved to LA, I made the choice to quit modeling and focus on acting. And I did I was fortunate to have had a successful career as a model, so I could be there and I could focus. And yeah, I did a couple of things, and then I got Battlestar the next spring. Yeah.
It's interesting that you said get into a character's mind, because I was going to ask you, I'm pretty sure everybody on this video probably knows your role, but for those who don't, in Battlestar, you played a robot that was, you know, kind of coming to end the human race, for lack of a better way of saying that. And your character had copies of themselves, meaning you would play multiple roles as technically different people, and you would have to shoot them on the same day. So, I mean, I think I saw that you would dye your hair every 10 days and it just started to fall out. So it was a very intense role. So I guess it's a multi-tier question, but I really want to know how you get into the mind space to be switching characters so quickly and quite literally transforming almost by the hour.
It didn't start out that way. My character was the known Cylon. For those of you that don't know, Battlestar was the robot race of the show, the humans and the robots, the Cylons. But in the miniseries, I was basically two characters, and I really wasn't even quite sure, because once the red dress, you know, Head Six appeared, we never saw Caprica Six again. So until the series got picked up. So at the time, I mean, although my character was the only known Cylon in the beginning throughout the miniseries until the end, I didn't know I was going to end up having that many characters. So it was something that sort of evolved. I mean, once we got into and discovered there was multiple copies and that type of thing. So it really was, I think in the first season, I had a Shelley Godfrey character that I wanted to purposely make a little bit different. She also was there on a mission, so she had to seem a little bit different. But I really only had Head Six until the second season. And that's when I started getting around the Pegasus episodes. Gina came in to the storyline, and that's when it started developing. And it was, for me, it was a blessing, because I was getting a little bit tired of playing Head Six, because she was only in another character, Baltar's imagination, or he was the only one that saw her. So I felt like her storyline was kind of stilted, because she didn't really have her own storyline, and there wasn't much, I didn't feel, development for her. She was kind of the slinky one, kind of. So I felt it limiting to play her, only her. So for me, when I got the other characters, it was a blessing. It was like Christmas. And trying to find the nuances of these characters that are essentially all the same model, but their soul, you know, their consciousness is different. And so I kind of likened it to, and I know I've said this before for the Battlestar fans that may be listening and have probably heard this, I kind of looked at it like maybe identical twins that were, you know, some of them would have been raised together, then it might have been some that had been separated and raised differently. And I also looked at it as what their level of interaction, because especially in the beginning of the series, the Cylons and humans are against each other. So how much interaction they had they had no interaction and had this view of what humans were like, of what they were indoctrinated with, they were told, or had they had interaction, had they been, you know, like you know, an undercover agent or that, something like that, like Caprica Six, that turned out to actually be in love with Baltar and see humans for the depth that they are. And it turns out that the Cylons were as well. That's what Battlestar did so well, is melding, you know, the gray area. And so to me, it was just I know I'm rambling, sorry. It was a complete, like, you know, Christmas present to get the multiple characters.
It's truly impressive to be able to switch that quickly is an amazing skill set. And I'm sure it really fine-tuned your skills as an actor and just sort of expedited that process, because it was such a concentrated thing. And I wanted to ask you, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tricia.
No, I was just going to say that when the first main different ones was Gina, and she looked different as well, because that's when my hair fell out. So she had whatever was left of my hair and had tried to put some color left in it. And that's when they had to give me the wig. So those characters physically look different as well, which helped, right? Yeah. But they also had such drastic different stories that also helped. But it is funny. I was reminded of one time we were on set and I was playing Head Six, the red dress one. And there was we were in the scene and apparently some journalists came in to do a story and they were by Video Village, which is where the monitors, where the director sits and everything. And we were brought out after the scene and we met them and I was like, hi, how you doing? Da, da, da. You're introduced to them. And there was this one journalist that just kind of sat there like, you're so different. Like, what did you think? I was just like, I walk around like number 6 all the time. It's called acting. But
that's really funny. That's awesome. Hey, that means you're convincing, right?
I hope so. Hope to continue to have a job, so I hope so.
If your past is anything like your future, I'm sure you're going to be fine. I thought it was really neat that you spoke up about this when they wanted to cast one of your copies or one of your stand-ins. You were pretty adamant about not having that woman be anorexic because apparently the woman they brought in, she may have been anorexic, and you're like, I don't want to promote that type of image to young women. I don't think it's healthy, and young men and non-binary. So can you tell me a little bit about that and why that's so important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little OCD, so I pay a little bit, maybe too much attention to, because there was multiple copies of my character, they sometimes for timing would have to have photo doubles, right? So you just see the back of their head. So I don't have to then change clothes and whatever. It's for timing and shots and everything. Everybody knows that. So it wasn't just the one young lady that was clearly struggling with anorexia. It was extreme. It was pretty extreme. I mean, I'm 5'11" and fairly thin, or at least at that time I was a little bit thinner then, at the early stages of Battlestar. So I'm not necessarily the easiest person to find a photo double for. But I would pay attention to everybody. It wasn't just for weight, right? There was one girl that was walking and she was supposed to be she was walking across the courtyard and she was supposed to be more of a little bit military one. That was kind of her position. And she didn't know the storyline. She was just told to walk that way. And she was walking like she was on a catwalk, like in a fashion show. And I went up to her and I talked to her and I said, that's not, you need to walk like you're on a mission. You're heading there to do something or whatever. You're not trying to be sexy and slinky and whatever. So I would check out everybody. But there was one particular instance where there was a young woman that was extremely thin and didn't look naturally thin. I mean, I grew up naturally thin and I've had my fair share of people, saying I should eat more and all that kind of stuff. And I also was in the modeling business where, not everybody has it, of course, but there are certainly some that I worked with that struggled with it and either, overcame it or continued to struggle with it. And so I didn't want to promote that. And I also thought she looked different than me, so it was easy to pinpoint, but I also didn't want to, if my character was supposed to be sexy and supposed to be, but also healthy and physical, it was a physical role as well. I didn't want to promote that to people watching and say, that's okay. It's not healthy. It's not healthy to promote that. I don't think.
I think that's great. And our industry definitely seems to be headed in that direction of representation, which is wonderful. And it kind of is a nice little segue to Van Helsing, which is such a female empowerment show. It's so cool. And you are the first female Dracula ever. Am I right?
I think so. When I was researching it, I think there was Dracula's wives. There was Dracula's daughter, I think. There's been many female vampires, obviously, but yeah, I think I'm the first The first Dracula.
I see people clapping in the background. I agree. Kudos to that, because that is such an incredible feat. And what is that like? I mean, doesn't that role feel so kind of important? Or did you kind of just get thrown into it and figure it, kind of just go for it?
Yeah, I mean, the show is very, female empowerment, but I liken it more to, not to bring up Battlestar again, but I liken it more to, it's not a show that's like, I'm woman, hear me roar, and let's point out everything that they can, it's gender isn't really an issue, like in Battlestar, it's just, this is, Vanessa Van Helsing is and now Violet and Jack, they're the vampire hunters. Like, it's just, they are who they are, and they're kick-ass at what they do. That doesn't mean there's not also kick-ass male characters like Axel or Julius, or, or bad female characters or good female characters, and that's one thing Battlestar did as well, very well, is also with the gender. It's like, Rosalind wasn't, Adama didn't think she shouldn't be president at the very beginning after the attack. He didn't, because she was a woman. He believed it because he didn't think she was ready because she was 43rd down in succession.
Yep. So
it wasn't because she was a woman, it was like, what experience does she have, and that type of thing. And Starbuck was a fighter pilot, and it wasn't like she's a mess or she's a whatever because she's a woman or she can't fly. It's just, they were all individual characters. And I think that's what Van Helsing does well also. Because you can also have, shows that go too far the other direction, right? Like it's this strong female character, and then she can never get hurt. She's not, and she can beat up any guy, and she can whatever. And it's like, no, like, let's just be real. Like, show all types of different characters. Men can be vulnerable, women can be vulnerable. I enjoy showing all facets of humanity.
I love that. And I wish I could continue asking you more questions about that show in particular, but I see the chat blowing up. So I want to continue on just touching on a couple other key points in your career.
Sorry, I'm too talkative.
No, you're great. I don't want to hog the time from all of your fans. I do want to ask you about Bombshell, because that movie was so important, and it is still so important, about the conversations we're having now as a society with Me Too and Time's Up. And you played a real person, Allison Camerata, and she was, for those who don't know, she was one of the women who was sexually harassed by Roger Ailes, and former Fox, now at CNN. So for you, what was it like playing a real person, and kind of when you guys were all on set, did you feel the weight of the importance of what you guys were creating?
With Bombshell, I had played a real person before in like an MOW, Farrah Fawcett, right?
Yeah, right.
This obviously was different. That was, a fun story about Charlie's Angels, the madness that became. This was different because it's such an important moment in history of kind of the taking down of Roger Ailes and the believing of what was going on there, and the not only the power dynamic, but also what we all know the story now, right? And what was going on, and keeping people down because of they wouldn't do sexual favors, or whatever it all was, or promoting people because they did. And so for me, it was in the beginning, I was like, really? It's like one tiny scene or two tiny scenes. Like, I really don't want to go in on it. But I'd seen Allison Camerata on CNN, and, I think she's great. Then I looked up a little bit more, and I was like, I think she's like 5'2". I'm like 5'11". Like, there's no way I'm going to get cast, Gordon. I told my manager, I was like, there's no way. And he goes, just go in. It's Jay Roach. It's like, it's really, and I was like, okay. And I went in, and it was very, like, I got it the night before, and they had, the audition was, there was more, there's a whole paragraph of Allison giving an interview right, of her experience that I knew wasn't in the script. There's like one line or two lines in the script, but I did it. I thought, you know, and I went in and got it right away. And I actually researched a little bit more after and found out it actually came from an interview that she did. I wasn't aware of that. I thought they just made up some stuff. And it was actually her words. Wow. And I was kind of proud of myself because I was like, there was a few words and a few ways that she did it that I nailed in the audition, but I hadn't seen it. I was like, yes, I guess that's why I got the audition. But Chris, maybe do your research more. But
maybe not. I don't know. It works.
I had a little ego. You know, I had a little ego, truth be told. I was like, what's that one line? It's 2 lines. It's nothing. But it was a great experience. You know, I fully expected to go there and be like, you know, pushed to the side and whatever. And when I went in for the fitting, Jay Roach came right up to me and he thanked me for doing it. He's like, I know it's not much, but you know, this is such an important story. And he told me of when I'm on the phone with Megan's character, Megan Kelly, Charlize's character. He's like telling me how they're going to shoot it. We're both on rooftops in Manhattan. And he was so kind and not belittling to the fact that it was such a small role. And he, you know, when we were shooting the convention stuff, he came up to me and he's like, you know, I've become really good friends with Allison. I think she's really going to like your portrayal. It was just a really wonderful experience. And I wasn't expecting that going in because I had a little bit too much of an ego that it was too small of a role. And, you know, and it's an important story to be told. So I'm glad I could have been part of it. Allison reached out to me, I think on Instagram afterwards. And she's like, oh, hi, if you're ever in New York, we gotta meet up. So
have you taken her up on that?
I haven't been there since, actually. Yeah, I would love to. I'd be a little bit nervous too, but I'm kind of a little, you know, I'm a little farm girl. I still have that little bit of a insecurity of, you know, she's a reporter on CNN. What does she want to talk to me about? But no, I'm sure I will at some point meet her. She seems like a lovely, lovely woman.
I think you definitely need to Instagram live that whenever that happens. So all the fans watching can follow up because I want to see that. I'm just going to ask you a few more questions because then I'm going to move over to the audience. But, you know, you've been vocal about the importance of creating these multidimensional female characters, not just the sexy woman. You want somebody who can kick ass, like you do your own stunts. 4 discs in your back and you're still doing your own stunts. I mean,
not all of them. Kudos to the awesome stunt women out there that have done the extreme stuff for me. But yeah, I do most of, and some, you know, I've hurt myself a few times. I've separated a rib. I've, but.
Incredible. That's incredible. And I just wanted to put that in there. It wasn't really part of my question, but when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, she's got 4 metal plates in her back and she's out there doing stunts. So kudos to you. But how do we, you know, as the entertainment industry and as women in the entertainment industry, continue to create these roles for other women, and sort of on all levels, in front of the camera, behind the camera? How do you see yourself wanting to do that in the future?
Well, I think there's definitely been a shift in the business over the last few years with the Me Too movement, with diversity. Even to some extent, I think it's a little bit lagging behind a little bit, but with age, you know, when I started, you'd always see Richard Gere with a 20-year-old, you know, or every FBI agent was 25, and you're like, no, to actually become a detective, you gotta put some years in, you know, like, that type of thing. But I think it is getting better, and I think it's important. People want to see stories of real life and reality, and we're so diverse, and we're so it makes the stories better if every character is multifaceted. Yes, you might, you know, if you're playing, if it's a bimbo character, yeah, have fun with it and let it be a bimbo character, you know? Not everybody is, you know, has the smarts of Michelle Obama, right? Like, male, female, whatever, doesn't matter. That's the fun part of acting, is playing all different types of roles. You know, I've played serial killers that certainly have a lot more of a edge to them than other characters that I've played. But I think in terms of going forward, it's making sure that there's more people in the room writing the stories, telling the stories. You know, it was, and I certainly wasn't in it in terms of the producing side of it and the writing side of it. I'm on the, you know, the actor side only of trying to get the jobs, you know? So that's something that I want to focus on as I go forward, is also creating some content now. But I think it's important to have more voices, listen to more voices, instead of it being like the same club, the same club that keeps doing the same, you know, keeps doing all the jobs, hiring the same people. And just having more stories be told from more angles, you know?
I love that. I can't wait to see what you do. I will be following you all the way. I have to ask you just about COVID and sort of, obviously we're all on Zoom right now. It seems to be our new reality these days. So
I'm in my jean shorts that I've worn for the last 2 days here.
That's awesome. Well, where is here? Can you tell us where you are?
Yeah, I'm currently in Vancouver, Canada. And up until, you know, I'm almost done my government mandated 2-week quarantine. I'll be done on Monday morning. But up until that point, I had not traveled. I traveled in from Slovakia. We were shooting Van Helsing, the first 3 episodes of the season, in Slovakia. And so I was there in February into the beginning of March. And I flew home on the 8th and went straight into filming something in LA for a couple of days. And then, you know, the industry got shut down. So I've basically been home in LA since. You know, you start to go, I'm really sick of myself at this point. But I have a lot of animals, and, you know, I think like everybody, you know, there's people that are fortunate enough to still be able to work from home, but there's a lot that can't. And it's been we've never seen it in our lifetime, right? So it's ups and downs like everybody, I think. Days where frustrated and angry and don't even want to talk to anybody. Days where you're like, I got this. Days where you're really appreciative of not being able, you know, not worrying at this point to be able to buy groceries yet. You know, I definitely am, you know, appreciative that I'm in a position where I, at least for the 5 months or whatever it was so far, that I was self-isolating or whatever at my home in Los Angeles, where I could have a backyard with a pool, and, you know, and I wasn't in a one, you know, tiny studio apartment with 5 other people. You know, I think it's really hard for everybody. And I think especially, we need to be kinder to each other in times like this, because everybody has a story. Everybody has their own challenges. And just because it might not look like somebody over there is challenged as much as you are, you don't know what they're going through. And I think if we were just all a little nicer to each other at this point, it would help everybody.
Amen to all of that. I mean, that is, I can't follow up with the question because that was just so good. I'm going to switch gears to the audience because we've got a lot going on here. So let's see, we got a couple people who submitted prior to this, so I'm going to let them go first. So here we go. Back when Battlestar was on, Ron Moore really wanted 5 seasons to tell the story. Is there something you would have liked to have seen for 6 that didn't get touched on, or a story arc that you might have liked for her? And that is from Mike.
Oh, wow, Mike. That's a hard one. You know, it's hard for me because I feel like Battlestar, I'm actually doing a podcast, a rewatch of Battlestar called Battlestar Galactica. And we're down to, I'm taping tomorrow, second or third to the last of the series. And back at the time, I was so new, like we said, I was, was my first series. I didn't, aside from wanting more to do than Head Six, I just kind of trusted in the writing. And looking back now, like the show, the stories, the writing was so incredible that I wouldn't really say that I would want to change too much, because it is a show that is holding up so well, and it really tells the stories so well. In my I don't know why I just looked at the TV, but in my rewatch of it,
over there,
yeah, over there. Yeah, I'm a little jealous of the Starbuck character or the Chief Tyrrell character, or there's so many phenomenal roles in it that I don't think mine was at that level of variation. But I wouldn't change the story. I think the Ron's version is what should be out there.
That's pretty great. Great question, Mike. So this sounds like a shout out from Mike L, a different Mike, I think. I love our interaction at Pensacola when the photographer told me not to blink, and I did like 3 times, and you looked at me and said, don't blink. You don't want to make number 6 mad, do you? So you obviously made a great memory for Mike L. So we'll just
we had to redo. I think we had to redo the shot a few times because he would blink and his eyes would be closed in the shot. So then I thought I had to go a little number 6 on him and scare him into not blinking.
I love it. Well, it worked, I guess. So Kyla, sorry. Hi, Tricia. What is your reaction when you found out that Tom Ellis had a crush on you? Anyway, I'm a big fan of yours. I love you.
I don't think Tom had a crush. I think he was just very sweet when he said that. No, Tom was a fan of Battlestar Galactica. So I mean, coming into the second season of a show, any season, any subsequent season, when you don't start the show, it can be really difficult because you're not part of the team, and you don't know the dynamics yet. It's like being a guest star coming on or a day player or something. You're like, oh, and Tom, just by telling me that, or telling me that he loved Battlestar Galactica, and actually knowing the show, like, it sort of set me at ease. And so I think he probably said that more out of to be cheeky and to help set me at ease than actually have a crush on me. Because if truth be told, he did, or maybe it was DB, maybe it was a Menadil. No, I think it was Tom. Maybe it was both of them. Told me that they had crushes on Starbuck. And DB was right there when I said I was having dinner with Katie. Did he want to come? And he's like, yep. I will drive across LA. And getting DB out of his house is almost impossible. And he's now had dinner with Katie twice. So yeah, I think the crushes were to Starbuck, not 6.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first, folks. So we've got one from Nick Payne, who's a huge fan of yours, an actor from Las Vegas. He met you once. He said you're incredibly talented, and he wanted your advice on, as an actor, how you start and maintain that career.
Everybody's trajectory and path is different. You have to find what works for you. A lot of it is luck and timing. I mean, I hate to say it, but it really is about being in the right place at the right time, being the right look. Coming from modeling where it was all about looks. I mean, you had to have ability to portray to the camera as well. But I was actually disheartened with how much acting is also about looks. And it might just be because you don't get the job because you remind them of their ex-wife, or there's so many things that go into booking a role, that I think it's really important to stay focused, to stay ready. Keep your chops ready. That's one thing that I'm actually kind of been a little bit freaking out about here in quarantine, because I've been not working for 5 months. And I'm heading back into set, and different protocols, with everything with COVID. But but also I'm like, I'm having trouble memorizing. I'm having, like, the muscle isn't there. And I haven't been in quarantine. I haven't been focused. I'm not a writer, so I haven't been using those muscles. I haven't been reading. I've had trouble focusing on, I've been doing my podcast, but I have, the reading and the memorization. And so I'm a little, stressed out about it. So I think in terms of, if you're not somewhere in your career yet where you have, enough of a resume already, it's staying sharp, staying focused, doing what you can in terms of theater, local theaters, even if you want to do things with your friends, but just being ready for when the opportunity comes. Mm-hmm. And I'm not very good at this either, but a friend of mine was very good at it, of letting it brush off when you don't get something. And sometimes you go in and you suck. You're human. Sometimes you have a bad day and you go into the room and you just don't do that great of a job. Sometimes you kick ass in the audition and you don't get it, and you think you are the best, like you connect to the character so much and you don't get it, and that can really bring you down. And then for the next few auditions you're in a slump because you're questioning yourself and whatever. And so you just have to believe in yourself, stay sharp, stay focused, and be ready for when the opportunity comes.
I have to say that's great advice for any industry. So I think everybody can take that and put that in their back pocket. Can I ask you what you are quarantining for? Can you tell us what you're going on set for, or is it a secret?
Yeah, no. I'm going back for Van Helsing. So we got stopped after the 3rd episode, which we had shot in Slovakia, and we had 10 more episodes to shoot. I'm not in all 10, but so they've actually picked up. They've been filming for 6 weeks now, going on 7 weeks. So they've put all of my stuff to the very end. They're block shooting me. So they've already shot episodes that I'm in, but they're shooting my scenes because of quarantining and because of, the border being closed and that type of thing. They had to that way. But I'm so excited to go back to work, to flex those muscles again, to be part of a team. It's going to be, there's new, I don't know yet because I haven't been on set. So I know obviously I've been reading all the memos and work, everything like that, seminars, but it's a different world that we're going to be filming in for quite a few years, I think, certainly until there's a vaccine. But I think there'll be some of the protocols that will be kept, some that will disappear once we're back to normalcy again. But I have I'm excited about it, and I'm really not worried at all. I feel very confident because they've been filming and they're being very strict and very, strict with their guidelines, and they've been filming successfully for 7 weeks now. So I'm looking forward to it. But I'm going back to Dracula.
Yes. Yes. So exciting. We can't wait to see. That's great. So Michelle and Lee from Chicago are humongous fans. They sent a lot of questions. And so just in lieu of time, they said you're an outstanding actor and you draw the audience in to believe any role that you're playing. Bravo. And they're also cat people and they love Lucifer. So I got to ask at least one of their questions. And they said, if Battlestar came back, would you join in?
Well, Battlestar is coming back. Not our version of it though. I pretty much know, I can pretty much say with authority that no, I wouldn't come back because Ron Moore has told me directly on my podcast that he has no interest in going back to do more Battlestar. He has Outlander now, and he's got For All Mankind, which is a fabulous show as well. And so he doesn't want to go back. And I think it would feel weird to go back and not be our team, But there is NBC, Universal, I think Peacock is going to, streaming service is going to be airing. They haven't shot to my knowledge. Sam, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Ismail, did iRobot. I mean, fabulous showrunner. He's doing another Battlestar. So I'll be watching it as a viewer. I know it's a different, it feels a little weird, of course, but kudos to them.
Maybe a cameo role. Maybe.
Never say never.
Isn't that the truth?
Yes.
So Roxette wants to know, growing up, what insecurities you had, if any, and if you still have them, and if you deal with them still, and how.
Oh, absolutely. Growing up, I was very tall and very skinny. I was this height at 12, I think. And I went to a very, very, very small school. From kindergarten to grade 9, there was 90 some students. But we were sports focused, even in a very tiny school. And luckily I was good at sports. So I never felt ashamed of my height ever. But I did feel very self-conscious about being so skinny. I was a beanpole. And it was actually when I was around, right before the modeling agent discovered me, I finally started putting on a little weight. I used to stuff myself to try and gain weight. And the modeling agent told me I had to lose 10 pounds. I was like, I just got it on. Like, you're telling me I got to take it off? But I was always a little insecure of being just body image, from being very insecure as a kid about being too skinny, and then being a modeling business where you're picked apart constantly for not being skinny enough or being this or that or whatever. I've always felt a little insecure with weight and am I sexy enough? Whatever. It sounds so crazy to hear it out loud because I was a successful model and but it never goes away. I'm not hindered by it now, but it's something that I'll still, my instinct will be to kind of retreat or get a little bit shy or something if I'm feeling insecure. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know certainly myself, I never had the problem of being too skinny, but definitely struggle with body image. And I think it's something that so many people struggle with and not enough people talk about. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we can destigmatize it because it is not a taboo topic and it shouldn't be. So thank you for sharing that. I want to pop over really quickly over here because somebody just said she has to leave soon, but she wanted to drop in and say a big hi from Edmonton, Alberta. And hello to a fellow Canuck, an artist. And she just wanted to say how proud she is of all the talent coming from Alberta. And she was a huge fan of Battlestar and Burn Notice, and cheers to you, toasting with Timmy's.
Right. It's like Canada's Starbucks, I guess. Yeah, Timmy's.
I didn't want to miss that for Carol because that obviously was, I wanted to get it in. Carol, I hope you heard that. So going to Luciana, of all the love interests that your characters have had, which ones have you had the most chemistry with?
Oh gosh. I don't know. That's hard. It's hard because for example, I did a show called Dark Blue with Dylan McDermott, and I think on screen we had great chemistry, but off screen we didn't really get along. I found him difficult to work with. But Baltar and I on Battlestar, I love and adore that man, James, and I think that showed. I think we had great chemistry. I think there's some Hallmark movies that I did. I did a show, Killer Women, and then a Hallmark movie with Mark Lucas that him and I are like, he treats me like a dude, because I'm a tomboy, right? And so I was doing all the stunt driving and all this kind of stuff. And so he just treats me like a bro. And when we have, romantic scenes, it's like, so we get along really well. And there's I don't think a formula, like you can get along really well and it doesn't portray on screen. It's sort of that je ne sais quoi. You just don't know if it's going to work or not until you actually see it on screen.
That's interesting to hear that it may not always translate. And I just want to be cognizant. Are you okay to keep going for a little while? Because we're coming up on the hour mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I should just maybe plug in my computer. I might have to move slightly, and I see a little red. If I see it go, yeah, I should do that. Just hold on.
No problem.
Sorry, I thought it would last, but nope. Batteries don't last as well as they used to. We're safe now.
No problem. So we have a question from Dana or Dana. When you auditioned for Battlestar, did you know you could be working with Edward James Olmos and Mary McDonald?
Yes, I did, because they were cast first, obviously. They were offered the roles, and that was probably part of what got the show the green light, as you call it, right? So I knew Mary and Eddie, but I didn't know anybody else who was cast. Baltar and I think, were cast last. We were the last of the lead characters cast. But so I didn't know anybody else. But yeah, I knew Eddie and Mary, yeah.
That's cool. So somebody, Diane, I think what she wants to ask is, have you ever wanted to play a role that is like totally opposite to all the roles that you've played before? Just maybe like Charlize Theron in Monster, like shave your head, just going kind of like totally different vibes. I mean, some could argue what you're doing right now is pretty different. It's got a very different vibe going on right now. Not gonna lie, I've seen you in it and you do not look like that, how you look right now. But is there any role that you're itching to play that's something you've never done before?
Absolutely. There was actually 2 auditions. I've been fortunate to play quite a few very different roles. I tend to play strong roles, and I think a lot of that has to do with how people perceive me, my height, my voice. I don't have a little girly voice. I have a strong, voice. So I tend to get, tough attorneys, the roles like Dracula or Battlestar or something where they're, physically stronger roles and things like that. But I don't get to play moms very much. I know I was a mom on Lucifer, but that's a different type. I don't get to play the Hollywood's version of moms are either a little bit more on their version of fuddy-duddy side, or, perky and blonde and, 5'6" perky blonde, like the Julie Benns and the Julie Bowens and wonderful actors and women. But, they have their, which we talked about also earlier, is trying to break through these standards of what Hollywood deems is this role or this role. I would love to play a role of somebody struggling with maybe, I don't know how to say it correctly, mental instability, or somebody struggling with their sanity, more like a Cate Blanchett, like in a Blue Jasmine role.
Oh yeah,
with Blue Jasmine, something like that. Somebody on the edge of their sanity. And I find that I would really like to get into that type of character.
Does that go back to your interest in psychology, or where does that come from?
I think so. I think it really does. And I also, I've known mental illness is a lot broader, and I think affects a lot of people. I've had a sister that has struggled with mental illness in her life, and it's just something. I think it is the psychology aspect, and it's sort of like finding the line of this person's struggle, and it's just you really feel to me it's something that I can sort of just dip into and be outside of myself. Where sometimes I don't get that with some of the other roles. I've had 2 auditions where I was just like, yes, I loved it. And I felt like I nailed it. And I didn't get both of them because of looks. Like the one, they thought I was too pretty, and the other one, that it was not the right look, but the one of them, not to toot my own horn, but it was just like, it also goes back to what I was talking about earlier with auditions as well. Like, if you feel you're this character, you have to be able to let it go. But this one role was the casting assistant actually clapped after, you know, he was like, that was amazing, thank you. And I walked out of there thinking, I'm gonna get this, and I didn't get it, and it, you know, it upset me, but you can't let it get you down, because then you're not ready for the next one. But I'll get one of these days. I'll get one of them.
Does that ever kind of inspire you to want to write and create the characters you want to see on screen? Yes, and I should. I don't know what's holding me back at this point. Maybe it's insecurity of thinking I'm not a writer, I can't write. So maybe I should take a screenwriting class. Maybe I should do something like that to get a little bit of tools under my belt. But yeah, that's something that I should probably focus on. That would be cool. I would be very eager to see what characters you write. I think you answered Karen's question, who I think you did actually, that you play strong women in a lot of your roles. Is that something you're drawn to, which you just answered? John wants to know, what do you think the Sixes were doing once they settled on Earth? And how did you interpret Ron Moore's last scene on Battlestar with Six and Baltar in some form in current day NYC? That's a hard question. I don't know. You know, to be completely honest, there's still things I don't quite fully understand. I'd be able to answer this question better in a couple of weeks after I've watched the last podcast. Episodes. Exactly. So that's the plug. Tune into the podcast, and it is called, tell me the name again. Battlestar Galactica. Yes, everybody check it out, because then you can relive it real time with Trisha. Exactly. No, we have Katie Sackhoff is actually guesting tomorrow with us. Well, the one we're taping tomorrow. Edward James Olmos was on last week with us. We had Bear McCreary, the composer, the week before. Ron Moore has been on a couple of times. So if you're a fan of the show and you haven't checked it out, it's fun. You know, we also swear a little bit too much and whatever, but it's really nice to get their insight as well. I don't know what the Sixes would be doing. There were so many of them. I love the idea that Baltar was going to go back to farm. You know, it hits me a little bit. You know, I just love their story that they came back to finding each other and realizing that they loved each other. And it's been so many years since I've watched the finale. I have to watch it again to really fully answer properly, because I don't remember. That's okay. That's why you're doing the podcast. I mean, the show wrapped in 2009, is that right? About then? So yeah, we wrapped in 2008, so it probably finished screening in 2009, yeah. So it's fair. I think you get a hall pass then. So Diane says she sees a tattoo on your wrist, and she wanted to know what it is, and do you want more? She has 4 and wants more. I actually have 3. Okay. I can't show you this one because I'd have to take my top off. That's a different one, no. I have a feather right here that I actually got just last fall, last November or December, up here in Vancouver. And I have little kitty paw prints on my right ankle. That was my first tattoo, and I love them. This one I got at the same time, same week as my kitty paw prints, which I'm actually getting an arrow put over it while I'm up here from the same artist that did my feather. So yes, I am getting another one. Getting this one partially covered up. And this is my ex-husband's initials. But I've kept it, you know, my ex-husband and I get along really great. We spent 17 years together. And so it's not I don't want to get rid of him. It's time, you know, I feel like it's like, okay, I want to cover that up. And I've always loved the idea of this very kind of raw arrow. So that's going to go over there, and the feathers are going to kind of cover, it might not disguise it completely, but it'll cover it up a little bit, or meld with it. I don't think covering up is the right word, because that's not what I want to do. Just sort of meld with it a bit. I think that's fair. sounds like it's going to be neat. And I can't believe we've gone this whole conversation without talking about your cats. When you mentioned your the cat prints on your ankle, I was like, how have we not talked about Max and all of your adorable cats? And if you guys don't follow Tricia on Instagram, you have to, especially if you're cat people. You will just like die of cuteness.
I'm a huge animal lover, but I've always just had this affinity to cats. So yeah, I'm the crazy cat lady. And if I was home in LA, those of you that have seen other panels with me know that Fiona would have been here, but she is back home in LA, and Max is he's asleep over there. So I brought Max with me to have a little cuddle bunny, and probably wasn't the best choice because he was not so happy to travel.
I can empathize. I get it. Traveling is a lot.
Yeah.
So let's see. Marnie said that her sister met you at Dragon Con one year and said you are genuinely such a nice person. Do you enjoy fan interaction?
I do. I love fan interaction. It's fans are why I keep working, right? It's, especially to meet people and hear their stories and hear how something you have done either could have just been pure entertainment for them, taken their mind off things, or something that was helped them get through a tough time. Especially not to talk about Battlestar again, but a lot of stories I've heard of people either in the military or have had some sort of event happen to them, and that has helped them get through something or help them work through something or certain shows maybe help them connect with their family. That's what means the most to me about the fan interactions, is seeing something that I do that somebody else can take something from and either help them or just give them a little reprieve from the daily struggles of whatever, and just have a laugh and have a giggle and pure enjoyment.
Well, you have a ton of messages from people who are saying, yes, me too. I've met her, or I've heard of somebody who's met you, and just say how lovely you are. And I think we can all see that here tonight. I can attest, it's just been such a pleasure chatting with you. And we're not quite done yet, but I have to say, you really are just such a down-to-earth, lovely person to talk to. And it's very refreshing just in the entertainment industry to see somebody as successful as you just be such a nice, normal person.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So let's see. I'm going to just kind of scroll down. Oh my goodness, you've got so many messages and I don't want to keep you all night long. We've got a bunch of specific questions for Battlestar. Here's an interesting question, because I think we've talked a good amount about Battlestar, although I'm sure that I might get in trouble for not asking all of them. Caroline wants to know, have you thought of becoming more involved in the Canadian film industry? The types of stories and characters are very different here and seem to fit your way of thinking.
Wow, that's actually a really interesting question. I think because I moved to the States at 17 to start modeling. I lived in New York, and then I moved from New York to LA. I started my acting career in Los Angeles. So I've always just been booked as an LA, actor. So I don't know the Canadian industry per se. Like, I don't know the casting directors. I don't know the, indie film producers here necessarily. I've done a couple of in the past. I mean, there's less indie films going on now. So I've never really explored it because I didn't live here. And I didn't kind of come up in the business here, but it's something that I've actually thought about, over the last little bit. Like, it might be something, it might be interesting to come up here, and maybe explore a little bit more. But at that point, that's sort of the reason I haven't at this point, is because I lived in Los Angeles and that's where I was booked out of. So I was working and I just felt I was happy to be working.
Fair, very fair. Well, I'm going to ask one more question because I think we could go on and on all night. Again, a bajillion thank yous down this thread for your time, for how lovely you are. Since we were talking about lines earlier, I think this is maybe a nice way to end. Daniel or Danielle wants to know if you could talk about the process of how you learn your lines, how you decide what mannerism a character should have, and sort of what a day in the life on a shoot is like. And they asked how Max was doing and if he's feeling better.
Max, I'll start with Max. He's feeling better. He traveled, didn't do well for his system, so he spent 24 hours in the hospital, and thankfully I have good friends here that could come get him and not make me have to, because I was in quarantine. But he had a few days of laxatives and he's cleared out, so he's good. But he's still staging a hunger strike, and still decided that he's not eating properly. So I have experience with a different pet that he's deceased now, but did the same thing on a trip to Vancouver and stopped eating, and he never went back to eating normally again. I had to feed him by syringe for the rest of his life. But so I know how to do it. But yes, Max he's doing fine. Now back to the other question. Now I completely forget the other question.
How you learn your lines.
Literally not good enough.
Very segue.
For me, it's like once I've read the scripts, and I work on kind of the development. Once you know a character, it's a little easier, but when you first developing a character, trying to figure out, mannerisms and what makes them tick and why they feel certain ways about things and how they respond. Once it's a character you've been playing for a while, you just slip into that. So you don't really have to pay attention as much to that. But in terms of actual memorization, it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the easier it is. So when you're a regular on a show, you just get back into routine of it and you pick it up quicker. But if you have breaks in between, like I've had, it's just harder to get it to stick. But it's also not just about memorizing the exact thing. It's about the conversation. So oftentimes if you're involved and you're with the other character, as opposed to this is my line, this is your line, this is my line, it will also feed you. So it's less about knowing exactly every dotted I and cross T type thing. It's more the fluidity of the conversation, and what they're saying will inform what you're supposed to say if you know the story, right? But if it's something with a lot more exposition or something, that's harder to learn. Or like facts and things like that, like procedurals, like exposition is harder to learn. And so I actually learn really well on the treadmill, oddly enough. So once I've kind of broken down my script, I like to reread the scripts over and over and over again, and my scenes. And I think something about being on the treadmill just is like my body's doing something, so my mind is a little bit more focused, because half of my brain is like just trying to keep me on the treadmill without falling off. I find it harder to sit and memorize at a table, or something. I'll go for a hike and I'll take a little mini recorder and I'll record the other dialogue, and I'll rehearse my dialogue with the mini recorder. I use the mini recorder quite a bit. But for me, I'm a visual person. I have to see it. So I definitely learn better by reading it over and over and over again and looking at them.
That is awesome. Well, I have no doubt that you're going to crush it when you go back on set in a few days. And on behalf of everybody, I see Girls Night In just pop back, but I just want to thank you so much for your time. You were an absolute joy to talk to, and I just can't wait to see all the things you continue to do.
Thank you. It's been wonderful talking to you. And thank you everybody for joining and for your questions. And I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it.